Hello and welcome to the first lesson of Piano 101. So many people have asked me if I can give them the sheet music for the tutorials, but I don't use any. I do everything by ear, picking out the chords in the songs that I do. And I'm going to teach you how to read and play these chords for yourselves. First, a really brief history about me. I started playing piano when I was 7 years old. I got kicked out of the car by my mum and told to get into the piano teacher's house, which was a bit horrific. Finishing grade 8 when I was 14 years old, and at the time I thought I was really awesome, and I was pretty good, but just good at reading the notes on the page and then translating that to the keyboard. Then when I was 17, I was asked to join the Pembrokeshire, Carmarthenshire and Cardiganshire Three Counties Youth Big Band. A big shout out to the conductor Gareth Sanders, top guy. So thinking I was awesome, I waltzed in there thinking I would be absolutely fine. And for the first song I was presented with a sheet of music, quote unquote, that had no notes whatsoever, just chords, which I was expected to then play and improvise over. It was a massive reality check, and I didn't really know how to play the piano at all, apparently. A couple of years playing for them changed everything. Now when I pick up a piece of classical music, I'm able to think in chords instead of just notes, which makes it a heck of a lot easier to get to grips with. And I'm able to make sense of it and other pieces of music as well. Of course, the great thing about this is now I can listen to a song and write down the chords and be able to play it very quickly, which incidentally for me was the best way of practicing hearing and playing these chords. So let's start with the basics. This is for anyone who doesn't know any theory at all or is just starting out with the piano. This is a really good place to start. For most of these lessons, I'm going to be working in the key of C, but all these ideas and chords can work for any chord, any note, and it's fundamental that you do try these out for all other keys. Sadly, as with most things, being able to pick up what notes you should be playing for a chord comes with practice. So what do I mean by a key? Well, a key tells you what scale or chord a piece revolves around and usually starts on. In order that you know chords, you first have to know scales, but in this video we're just going to look at the scale of C major. A major scale sounds happy like this. So there I started on C, that's middle C. This is what we can call our root or our one, or the first note. Then we go up a tone to D, or in other words, 2 semitones. That's a semitone, that's a tone. Okay, so we go C, then a tone, then another tone, then a semitone, tone, 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 semitone. And we've ended up back at C, which is an octave above where I started. Same note, just an octave apart. So whichever scale you're playing, the major scale always follows this pattern from the root. So let's give these notes numbers, of which there are 7 in a scale. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8 is basically the same note as your root. So let's go on to the chord of C major. A major chord is made up of note 1, note 3, and note 5. Or in other words, the first note, the third note, to be exact, the major third, and the 5th note. In our case, that's going to be C, E, and G. That's the first, third, major third, and 5th. There you go, you just learnt your first chord, C major. If you just played this chord like this every single time, it would sound a bit naff and a bit boring. So you can change which order these 3 notes are played in. If we shift the C up an octave, but keep the other 2 the same, it looks like this. So we've shifted the C up and we're starting chord on the E. Still the same notes. I'm playing the same notes but just in a different order. This is called the first inversion of C major. Okay, so that's your normal chord, first inversion of that. And then if we shift the E up an octave, we'll keep the other 2 the same there, that's the second inversion. And then if we do that once more, we're back to the beginning again. When you see this chord on a piece of music, you will only see the letter, or you should only see the letter, nothing else. This tells you that this is a major chord. Looks like this. So if you're playing this in the right hand, what are you going to be doing with the left hand? Well, unless you're really competent enough to do a walking bass, the kind of thing that a double bass would play, something like that, then it's probably a better idea to just play the root note, that's the first note, in octaves if you want, with the left hand. So say I wanted to play a C major chord with my right hand and my left hand, I play the chord with my right hand, and then the root note with my left hand, maybe octaves. And that sounds really full and complete. Sounds really good. Now, you can also play the fifth note in your left hand and it still sounds pretty good. However, if you start adding the third note into your left hand, that's adding in your E, then it starts to sound a little bit weird and a little bit rubbish. Sounds not quite right. So it's a good idea to keep the third in your right hand. That might change a little bit later on in a couple of lessons, but we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. So here's an example of this. If I play the root note and the fifth note in my left hand, and then I play the third with my right hand, we come out with this chord. That's your C major chord, but just played not in the same order as you saw earlier, but still sounds really nice, sounds really complete. Okay, so that's the hardest part over. If you can get your head around major chords, and with just a few tweaks, you can play any chord possible from this. So in the next lesson, we're going to look at the minor chord, and then after that, we're going to look at the seventh chords. If you've got any questions, or you think I've missed something out that you think is important, please leave a comment down below, and I'll do my best to respond. Have fun.